April, welcome to hashtag World Food Day.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, so the first thing that I'd like to ask you is, could you tell us about yourself and your journey?
So people call me a chef. I always say I cook and people pay for it, thankfully. I have always had dreams of being in hospitality. My friends tell me that often when I was in school, I would talk about having a restaurant. The trauma of having them has erased those memories from my mind. But I got into the business of food because I'm from Jamaica and I wanted to use food as the way to tell my story of what being Jamaican means. So I started my first restaurant 9 years ago. And we have evolved since. And now, as a mother, my perspective on food is quite different. I now read the labels, and I'm often talking about how we should be feeding our children better.
Okay, talk to me a little bit about, wood and water and all of these things, that the sort of evolution of your journey. Talk to us a little bit about the labels. Talk to us about the change now you have a young child and what kind of things we as parents should also think about.
So, some of the things that really stick out to me personally is that the way we feed kids in the UK is very different to the way I was raised on food. For example, you look at breakfast and the idea that we start our days with cereal or toast. I understand the convenience, but I think that we have lost the essence of food being nutrition. And we think of food a little bit of convenience and pleasure. As we see with our kids, the fact is that in England, 1 every 10 minutes, a child is having their tooth extracted at a hospital because of tooth decay. Our children are eating more than twice the amount of the recommended daily consumption of sugar. And personally, I think it also has a lot of impact on our child's behavior. I have twins, they are 3.5, and I'm very blessed that they eat absolutely everything. They still do not consume any refined sugar. They don't consume any ultra processed foods ever. And I'm keeping it that way for as long as possible. And of course, I plan on introducing these foods perhaps later on when we can achieve, everybody loves to talk about moderation. And so I do plan on teaching balance, but I think that it's really important to teach our children as early as possible to have a positive experience with healthy foods.
And why do you think something like World Food Day, this global conversation going on today, people all over the world tuning in and watching us now, why is a day like this so important, do you think?
I think, it's really interesting that World Food Day began in 1979 when hunger was at the top of the priority list. And of course, millions are still hungry. And that is super important for us to have these conversations as to how to help people. With my restaurant, we have been the largest individual donor to my local food bank since 2017, because I felt that if I'm in the business of food, I also want to use food to help others who don't have access to it. I think that now as the world evolves, World Food Day will also evolve, because for the first time, obesity is a larger threat to global health than hunger. And I think that a lot of that comes from education, but also we cannot deny the fact that to eat healthy foods is becoming somewhat exclusive, and it shouldn't be a privilege. Access to healthy food is a right that we should all be able to enjoy.
Completely agree. I want to ask you, you've got a lot of knowledge on a lot of different issues around food, right? And people have the opportunity to hear some of that. I want to ask you for some advice for individuals who might want to contribute in terms of making a difference, to the planet, in relation to some of the crises that we face around food. What advice would you give us? What kind of knowledge would you like to share?
I think the first thing I'd like to share is just because you can't solve the whole problem, let us not underestimate the value in making really small changes. I think that meal planning and batch cooking. So if you're going to take your Sunday evening and you're going to prepare your meals for the week, you're more likely to reduce your food waste. It is also shocking to me how many people think that it is dangerous to eat leftover rice. Whoever makes the right amount of rice each time? And so I think it's also important for us to educate ourselves on the correct food storage techniques. And of course, we should know how long food can last in our fridge. But for me, for example, I always steam my kids' veg once a week, and it lasts me 5 to 7 days. And people seem mind blown that you can actually keep your food in the fridge for that long under healthy conditions. So reducing food waste, even as a chef, as a restaurateur, those things are clearly important to me, also for the bottom line, but also because it pains my heart to throw away food in the bin when you think how many people are in need. I think that buying locally as much as possible is a great way to start. It helps sustainable farming, also reducing your carbon footprint, as you said, for the environment. But having these conversations as well about how we think about food is a small thing that we can all start doing, just to plant those seeds that hopefully later on will flourish into bigger ideas.
Amazing. Listen, I'm a dad. I'm a single dad, and so in terms of like when you're talking about steaming the vegetables, there, just give me a top tip on how. I know how to steam vegetables, but if I steam for 5 days, what am I doing? Am I putting them in Tupperware and then I take them out each day? How do I warm them without destroying them?
So with steaming, first of all, let me just quickly say that steaming retains nutrients better than your roasting, your boiling. Steaming is the best way to retain the nutrients in your veg. But in terms of prep, I always just keep the stacks. So you have your little steaming stacks and you have a quick rotation. And then I put everything into Tupperware. And can I just say, if we can, could we please use glass Tupperware instead of plastic Tupperware? But that's probably for another conversation. And then when I keep it in, I take it out and that will become your pack lunch. So it doesn't actually get reheated. Again, we have this idea that we must always reheat the food and then we have to wait because it's piping hot. So we have to wait for it to cool down. Whereas your child probably will just eat it straight on the plate. But you can always, quickly put it in a pan with a bit of olive oil and bring that up to temperature if you like. But I promise you, you and your babies will not get ill after eating some steamed veg that you cooked 4 days ago.
That's amazing. Thank you for that tip. I love that. Great stuff. So look, if people would like to support you and your work, find information, what can we read? Where do we go?
So in terms of my restaurant, I am based in Brixton. It is called Wood and Water because Jamaica means land of wood and water. And I guarantee you have never had Jamaican food like mine. In terms of talking about food, I do a lot of talking about food on TikTok. I got pulled into the social media realm, and that is probably majority of my content about how to feed our children healthy foods in an easy way.
Well, I'm definitely going to see you on TikTok, April, and I'm coming down to Brixton. Jamaica is like one of my most favorite places in the world. So I can't.
Baby, it's the best island in the world.
It really is. I really wish that people could have the opportunity to go there, as many people as possible, because it's an incredible, inspirational country with one of the greatest musicians that was ever lived, who was an inspiration to us all, the dear Bob Marley.
Amazing.
Yeah, man. Okay. Well, listen, it's lovely to talk to you, April. And I really wish you the very best on your journey. And thank you for joining us for #World Food Day.
Thank you.